you are welcome to our next lesson. Remember, we are still in vegetation. And in the vegetation, I would like you to spell for me the following words, the vocabulary which we shall be using during that time. Word 1 is Mediterranean. Mediterranean. Word 2, we have deciduous. Deciduous. Word 3, we have temperate. Temperate. Word 4, we have velds. Velds. And word 5, we have citrus. Citrus. So if you have finished those words, I would like you to look at with the correction that we are going to make. You keep following them very well. So our word 1, Mediterranean, we have Mediterranean. It is common, children always put single R, but check in the what you have written. Our word 2 is deciduous. Deciduous is written like that. D-U, that's where the problem sometimes comes. So check it well. Word 3, we have temperate. Temperate, as you can see from there. Word there. Word 4, we have velds. Velds, that's the correct spelling. Word 5 is citrus. So you can check the one you have passed, that's good, and the one that you have not passed, you can correct it from there. So we are continuing with the vegetation zones. As last time we looked at others, today we want to look at another vegetation zone. As you see it here, I have Mediterranean vegetation zone. This type of natural vegetation is found in the lands of Africa, in the northern part, and northwest and southwest Africa. We also have that the vegetation consists of woodlands. The vegetation consists of woodlands and shrubs mainly. And maybe before we go to looking at all the vegetation that we have just described, I would like us to go looking at the characteristics of Mediterranean vegetation. The first, we have the trees have thin stems and they are short. We shall look at it later. We also have trees have leaves, thin leaves, in order to reduce the rate of transpiration. We also say that plants have deep and widely spread roots so as to tap water from deep the ground. And trees in the Mediterranean lands also provide softwood, and the grass in the area is short. Trees shed their leaves during the dry season, and we call those trees that they are deciduous trees. When we come to here, we look at the picture, what we have been describing. I know these diagrams may not be so clear for you, but let's look at it. So here, this side of the board, you will find that we're talking about the trees having thin roots, thin stems, and the trees are not huge compared to those in equatorial places. Then we also have the grasslands around the other side, that the grasslands are short. You can see in front here. Then the behind trees are also of short. So that is briefly what can give us the characteristics. Referring to the other characteristics, I may not show all the characteristics from here, but you can see as they are on the board. We want to look at the tree species in Mediterranean land. So why are we focusing on tree species? You will find that the tree species of different types, and they mainly provide softwood. So one, we have the cedar trees, we have the pine trees, we have the cypress trees, we have the oak trees, cork trees, olive trees, and then the rosewood trees. These are all the types of trees species that are found there. So what is so common with this, that these trees are mainly planted by the people, and that's why they give softwood. We move to the next thing. Here we have the common planted vegetation in the Mediterranean land. So as people who live in such areas, the climatic conditions in that area also gives them good or ample conditions to plant the following. So we have there on the board citrus fruit trees, and that one is a common word which is joining very many trees. We have grapes, we also have lemons, we have oranges, we have apples, lime, tangerine, and vines. Those are the common. And remembering that during our learning of the Mediterranean climate, we said that this climate is the best for growing of citrus fruits. And that's why we have said that the common planted vegetation in the Mediterranean lands. So I think we can first go and look at some of the pictures. The first on the other side here, you will see that those are the grapes. We also have the tangerines here. These are some of the examples. We have the oranges, we have the apples. This is how they look like. Then we have the plantations. They are commonly grown in plantations in the Mediterranean lands of Africa. And they give us many products. Here, we want to look at why is it that citrus fruits are commonly grown in the Mediterranean lands of Africa. What is that thing that gives it to be done best in that area? There are conditions, and mainly we are focusing on the two conditions here, that the Mediterranean lands receive moderate rainfall. We also have the moderate temperatures. The temperatures don't go too low, they don't go too high. Then the rainfall is not also too high or too low. So everything gives the condition for the citrus fruit to do best. That is why we say the Mediterranean climatic regions which contain Mediterranean vegetation are the best areas for growing citrus fruits. The very citrus fruits that we have looked at it, as you can see from the other side. So we have looked at the two conditions. Now, in Africa, there are many countries that are covered by this vegetation, that have this vegetation. And remember, when we're looking at climate, we say climate determines the vegetation of an area, or that grows in an area. So the Mediterranean lands also develop Mediterranean vegetation. So here we have the northern parts of Algeria, or Algeria in the northern part, might not be the whole, as you know, Algeria is one of the countries that are found in the desert, but on the northern part. We also have Tunisia in the northern part, Morocco, South Africa in the Cape regions. Those are the countries where you can find the Mediterranean. Now, people who live there, which economic activities do they carry out? Here is the economic activities carried out in the Mediterranean vegetation zone. Remember, at first I told you that growing of citrus fruits is the major economic activity carried out there. We also have rearing cattle. Sometimes children want to write cattle rearing. I think that word may not sound it so good, it is rearing cattle. We have lumbering, and this lumbering is done on coniferous trees which provide softwood. We also have tourism, since these countries have beaches or around the coasts. Those are some of the economic activities that are carried in such areas. We have to look at importance of Mediterranean vegetation, that the trees provide softwood timber, and we shall look at the importance of softwood later. And then the short grass in the area provide short grass. Here would have been pasture for livestock for them to carry out their activities. So you can look at one of the economic activities that is cited, livestock, rearing cattle. Here we have the ranch farming or ranch farm that you can find in that area. Here we have got some questions for you that I would like you to go and, following the notes that I have given you, you will be able to answer these questions. I can go through with them with you. Question number 1, or lesson activity number 1 says, mention any 2 characteristics of Mediterranean vegetation. We have already looked at the characteristics. You go and pick from our notes. Number 2, what type of wood is provided by trees in the Mediterranean vegetation? That one we have also looked at it. Now 3, name the major economic activity carried out in the Mediterranean lands of Africa. I have repeatedly and emphasized that point. If you remember, you put it, or you can even go through the notes before you attempt these questions. Number 4, write down any 2 examples of citrus fruits grown in the Mediterranean lands of Africa. You saw them in the picture. We also wrote their spellings down in the notes, so you will be able to pick some of them and put there. Name 2 countries in Africa that have Mediterranean vegetation. So you will pick the countries where you will find the Mediterranean. And lastly, that is state 2 conditions that favor the growing of citrus fruits in Mediterranean lands of Africa. All of that we have done. You will go through your notes and they will be able to guide you. Do not answer as if you are answering an exam. Please make sure that you master something before. Maybe as you prepare, you will come to that one later. We also want to handle something small, and that will be the next vegetation zone, and that is temperate vegetation. Temperate vegetation. This is also found outside the Tropic of Capricorn, that is in South Africa. We say the temperate grasslands of Africa are also called velds. Then you will remember that in our spelling vocabulary check, we had one of the words called velds, and we spelled it like that. So in other words, another word for temperate vegetation is veld. Velds. Now, the velds are found on the high plateau of South Africa, known as the high veld, in areas of Transvaal and Orange Free States. We also have Lesotho. So those are some of the areas in South Africa where you will find the velds, and they grow. So sometime I want to give you something here, a point that you have to note. They can sometimes ask that what name is given to the temperate grasslands of South Africa. Just simply put that they are known as the velds. Or they can, the other side, also turn the question and say, what name is given, what other name is given to the velds of South Africa? It is simply the temperate grasslands or the temperate vegetation. This vegetation also has conditions that favor its growth, and we want to look at the conditions that favor the growth of velds or temperate vegetation. One, we have moderate rainfall. They also have moderate temperatures. As I told you from the other one, that the temperatures don't go high, they don't go too low. They also don't go, the rainfall does not also go too high or too low. It is within the moderation. So we come to look at the velds here. May not be clear, but you'll be able to see them. The temperate grasslands or the velds, that's how they look like. You can see, as you're seeing on our place here. Here has got some few trees and the vegetation. The area is commonly covered by the velds. And these are the velds that we are talking about, mainly found in South Africa. Mainly found in South Africa. So you can have a look at that picture, and we go to the characteristics. After having looked at that, what do you see? Say the grass has short roots. We may not be able to see the roots. I can assure you that. But as you have seen, they have long and narrow leaves. When you look at this type of grass, you will not find that they are very large. When you look at it, you find that they are very thin, and we shall see the reasons as to why they go like that. So we also have that the leaves have hairy coverage. You may not see it clearly, but the leaves have that hairy coverage sometimes to help them adapt to the conditions in that area. Then in the other side, we say that they also have trees, as you see on the background at the hill there. The trees are there. Trees are few and are deciduous during hot periods. Remember, when we looked at the savanna vegetation, we said deciduous trees, these are trees that shed their leaves during dry season. And we gave a point and say, to reduce the rate of transpiration during dry season is in order to retain water to be used during that long dry spell, as they wait for rains to sprout again. Now, let's look at the economic activities that people who live in the veld areas can carry out. One of the economic activities here, say rearing livestock, e.g. rearing of merino sheep. I repeat that one, rearing of merino sheep, mainly for wool. And here, an examiner can choose a question and say, give a reason why merino sheep is mainly reared in the temperate lands. So those people who are there, they rear for the wool. Then we have dairy farming, ranch farming, rearing of Angora goats for mohair. When we look at, before I go to the second point, here I have some diagrams. This one seems not to be very clean. Here, we have merino sheep here. You may wonder how they harvest. that, but at a certain point, they will come and shave that hair, that wool, and taken. Then from there, they process it for making the blanket, adding it to the natural, maybe fibers. We also have Angora goats here. When we look at them, they most likely be like the other ones, but these ones, goats have got long horns, as you see here. Angora goats are also reared for mohair, which is mainly used by that. Maybe we can go back to the board and say growing crops, especially maize. Mainly grown in the maize triangle area. So in South Africa, that area in the temperate land where maize is grown, it is mainly in the maize triangle area. Maize triangle. So this one, do not tell a math teacher if they tell you to name any type or one triangle, then you say maize triangle, it is wrong. You will name them theirs. This area is mainly where maize is grown, but it is not a figure. That one you have to know it. And we have looked at the economic activities. So when we come here, you will find that in that area, maize seems to be doing very well because of the other two conditions that we talked about in that. Now, briefly in temperate vegetation, that's what we can handle. Here we have the lesson activity, and our lesson activity, and before you answer lesson activity, my dear candidate, I would request that you first go through the work. As you go through the work, then you will come back to the questions that will help you to understand or to master what you are to put, not only just picking an answer and you put there. Like our question 1 says that what name is given to the temperate grasslands of South Africa? We have already discussed that, and if you have forgotten, go through the notes and see the answer, then put it clearly. Remember correct spelling. We also have number 2, state 2 conditions that favor the growth of veldts in South Africa. If you have forgotten, you can also go through the notes that I gave you, and from there you'll be able to pick the conditions that favor the growth of veldts in South Africa. Our question number 3 says, give any 2 characteristics of the veldts. Give any 2 characteristics of the veldts. We have also looked at the characteristics of the veldts, and there in your notes, if you have forgotten them, go through them, master them, and pick the 2 and write them there correctly, the correct spelling. Our last question is, name any 2 economic activities carried out in the temperate regions of South Africa. So here I have 4 numbers. We have covered 2 vegetation zones, the Mediterranean vegetation zone, and then we have covered also the temperate. Maybe a go through is, we have covered that one. We have looked at the characteristics, they are there. We have looked at some of the vegetation, how it looks like, the tree species. We also have common plant vegetation, and we try to show you some of the diagrams there. You can go through them as you are watching clearly and then pick what you, I know most of you like the apples. They are also here, you see. We also have the plantations of those the oranges here as one of the. Then we looked at the conditions and the African countries where they are found, economic activity, importance of vegetation, as you see one of the economic activities. And we come to our lesson, the temperate. We have also said that they are also called the veldts. We looked at how they look like in this picture. We looked at the characteristics. We have also looked at the economic activities, and we have said rearing of livestock, and more so merino sheep, which is reared for wool. Then we have dairy farming, ranch farming, rearing of Angora goats for more hair. Questions can come around that area. Then we have growing of maize. We have seen the picture showing us the merino sheep, the Angora goat, and then the maize triangle, where maize is commonly grown in the temperate areas of South Africa. Then finally we have our lesson activities. I thank you for being my good viewers or listeners. At this moment, I would like to say, stay safe at home. Bye-bye.